Everyone, today I'm going to be talking about crisis communication. I want to first begin by asking everybody to think of a recent crisis you've encountered. How did the crisis make you feel? Is it a crisis you encountered within yourself? Okay, now let's think about a crisis you've experienced from the outside, such as a company's, whether that was a company's response to COVID-19 and the pandemic, or an organizational failure, some type of data breach and hacking. Now, think to yourself, were you judging the company's response? I'm willing to bet you were. And that's why crisis communication is so important, as consumers are constantly judging companies' responses to crises, and they are critical in customers gaining trust with a brand. So, what is crisis communication? Crisis communication refers to the dissemination of information by an organization to address a crisis that impacts customers and/or the organization's reputation. In other words, anything that's going to have a financial effect on your company, anything that's critical to stakeholders and shareholders involved, anything that poses some type of threat. What is crisis management within crisis communications? Crisis management is simply the action of managing a crisis and crisis communication. There are three key phases in crisis management. The pre-crisis, this is, any type of preparation, which also includes what would be known as having a crisis communication plan in place, which is basically a readily team of crisis communication individuals, as well as plans for any type of foreseen crises, whether that's a weather-related event, a pandemic, some type of hacking. You want to have policies in place so that you can respond to a crisis in a more timely manner should the need arise. Then there's the crisis response, and this is really dealing with the crisis hands-on, and really determining based on the crisis, its type and the facts of it. After gathering the facts, how you should best proceed with messaging. How should you best respond to media inquiries? How should you best formulate your messages and on what platforms? And then the post-crisis. The post-crisis phase refers to evaluation of how the crisis management went, as well as implementing any necessary solutions or improvements to your organization based on the crisis. So, for example, if there was some type of security issue where credit card numbers got stolen, you want to ensure to consumers what measures you took in order to heighten security. Next, I'm going to talk about best practices. So how can you best practice crisis communication? So you want to always be prepared. And as we said before, this entails having some type of crisis communication plan ahead of time so that you can respond to crises in a more timely manner. You want to also remain truthful to your brand and audience. A lot of the time, when these companies respond to crises, they're criticized, as it seems they're simply releasing a form letter that seems to just be written by a lawyer. You want to make sure that your messages are on par with your voice and your brand. You want to respond to all media inquiries, as if you don't, it can be seen as suspicious. You want to act fast but with care. Of course, you want to get information out in a timely manner, but it would be worse if there was discrepancies in the facts and you don't take the time to do the proper research, as that could actually worsen the crisis. You want to apologize for any wrongdoings, but without over apologizing. And finally, and most importantly, you want to come up with solutions and communicate those solutions to the public. Now let's talk about some recent case studies and best practices that can be learned from these. So let's talk about KFC. So in 2018, KFC ran out of chicken in their Ireland and UK stores due to a distribution problem and a logistical nightmare. Now, it's almost humorous and pretty ironic that a store that literally has chicken in their name ran out of chicken. So KFC recognized, it was somewhat humorous, but they came out, they responded in a timely manner while also recognizing the somewhat humorous situation. So they actually, in their messaging, remained very truthful to their brand as kind of this fun fast food restaurant and took a somewhat humorous approach in their messaging, recognizing their wrongdoings on their social media accounts and just really having as much fun with it as they can while also being serious and apologizing and providing any updates to the logistics and it eventually culminated in a final campaign where they rearranged letters of KFC to FCK. And it was a campaign that went viral, and it just really kind of cultivated the issue in the best way possible, really showing through to what KFC is all about. And it remains to be seen as one of the most successful crisis communication plans in recent history. Now let's talk about Peloton. So Peloton, this is very recent, faced a crisis when, just like that, had a famous actor, Chris Knopf, die on a Peloton in the show. Peloton was very upset about this. There's this famous actor dying on a much anticipated sequel. Of course, people are going to be questioning the safety of your product and possibly not want to ride it. So Peloton responded, quickly to this and got Knopf to actually do an ad riding the Peloton and ensuring its safety. However, just a few days later, Knopf had very serious sexual assault allegations against him. So they immediately took the ad down and released a statement condemning sexual assault. However, it shows you that just a few days later, Peloton thought they were fixing that initial crisis of a fictional character dying on a Peloton in a show. And it shows you how you must be adaptable. Even when trying to fix something, you never know what will happen next. And they had to move quickly to then take that ad down that they may have worked so hard to get. Ryan Reynolds also had to take it down from all of his accounts, as he was also involved in the crisis, as he was in the ad as well. So you really have to make sure you're covering all bases. So main point is crisis communications is so critical in this day and age, because as consumers, we're constantly watching what's occurring after a crisis. Crisis communication will always be critical to public relations. Thank you so much.